Hey guys, Jim here with another video for you. This is 50 Years in Film, 2010. But before we begin, at the end of this video, if you like what you see, please consider giving me a thumbs up, a possible subscribe, but most importantly, please leave the comments below. Let me know how you feel about the movies that I have in my collection and what other movies from this year I should have. Now, before we begin, we're going to start with the normal caveats. These are not all the films from 2010, far from it. These are simply the films that I own in my collection. The other caveat is this is not a ranking video of any kind. This is, again, is simply just a recap of some of the films that came out in 2010. Now, we have quite the variety this year. We've got everything from animation to horror movies. We even got a couple of documentaries in the mix for this year. So we're just going to go ahead and jump around in genre like we always do. And we're going to start off with animation. And first, we have a couple of sequels. The first one is Shrek Forever After, the final chapter, or Shrek Part 4. Starring the voices of Mike Myers, Eddie Murphy, Cameron Diaz, and Antonio Banderas. Directed by Mike Mitchell. Quite frankly, I saw this movie once, years ago. I remember I didn't really care for it at the time. I have not revisited it since. Then we have Toy Story 3 from Pixar, starring the voices of Tom Hanks and Tim Allen, among many others. Directed by Lee Ulrich. This was supposed to be the final Toy Story film, and it's a great way to end the original storyline from the trilogy. But of course, this movie was a huge hit, and they had to make a fourth one. We'll get to that one when we get to it. But Toy Story 3, just like the first two installments, it's a wonderful film. And the last animated feature that we have that from 2010, Despicable Me, featuring the voices of Steve Carell, Jason Segel, and a bunch of little minions. This movie's a lot of fun. It kind of came out of nowhere, and of course it's launched several sequels and several spin-offs because everybody just fell in love with these little guys, myself included. Yeah, Despicable Me is a lot of fun. It's a really cute movie. Then we're going to jump over to a documentary with Rush, Beyond the Lighted Stage. Now, I know some of you are like, hey, wait a minute. I know you're a Rush fan. This isn't fair. Well, hey, guess what? They did release this theatrically for a special sneak preview, and I saw it in a theater before I got the DVD. So there you go. Even if you're not a fan of the band or you've never heard of the band, this is a great documentary because it focuses on their music, of course, but it basically just focuses on how genuinely decent human beings these three guys are. And rest in peace, Neil Peart, the greatest drummer who ever lived, in my opinion. Then we're going to switch gears again. And from my Harry Potter collection, we're back to Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1. This is based on the final book in the series, and of course they had to split it into two parts. Other than that, I don't really know much about this movie because, as I have said on every other video with a Harry Potter film, I have not seen it. I'm sure it's a fine film. I still have not seen it. Now we're going to switch over to comedy. And the first one on the list, Death at a Funeral. This is a remake of a British movie that came out a couple of years prior. This has an all-star cast of Danny Glover, Chris Rock, Martin Lawrence, James Marsden, Tracy Morgan, Zoe Saldana, so many others. Directed by Neil LaBute. I forgot. That guy, yeah, we won't get into it. This is a really funny movie. I've never seen the original, to be honest, but I really do enjoy this. And it's got, again, great cast. So many good actors in this movie. So many funny roles in this movie. But James Marsden, believe it or not, actually steals the movie. Him and Danny Glover are absolutely hysterical in this movie. I really like this movie. Then we have Get 'Em to the Greek. This is a sequel, kind of, to Forgetting Sarah Marshall, because Russell Brand plays the rock star character from that film, but Jonah Hill plays a different character than he played in Forgetting Sarah Marshall. But it's basically written and directed by the same people. Or actually, based on the characters that Jason Segel came up, but directed by the same guy as far as I know. This is a funny movie. It's not great. It's nowhere near as good as Forgetting Sarah Marshall, but it is entertaining. And then we have The Other Guys with Will Ferrell, Mark Wahlberg, Michael Keaton, and extended cameos from The Rock and Samuel L. Jackson. Directed by Adam McKay. I like this movie. I don't love it. I got this from the Goodwill store recently for a couple of bucks. That's the main reason why I picked it up. But I do admit the cameo with Samuel Jackson and The Rock is one of the funniest things ever. It is so funny. And Michael Keaton, I think, is very funny in this movie as well. So again, it's a good movie. It's not the best. Okay, now we're going to switch over to drama. The first one on the list, Shutter Island. Directed by Martin Scorsese. Starring Leonardo DiCaprio, Mark Ruffalo, and Ben Kingsley. This is a mystery. Very good movie filled with excellent performances across the board. I highly recommend this film. Then we have The Social Network. Directed by David Fincher. With an Academy Award-winning screenplay by Aaron Sorkin. Starring Jesse Eisenberg, Andrew Garfield, Justin Timberlake, and the human cannibal known as Armie Hammer. Sorry, I don't mean that. That's complete conjecture. This, of course, is the movie about the creation of Facebook, and it's a very good movie. It's not something that I watch over and over again, but it is. It's a very enjoyable movie. Jesse Eisenberg is very good in this movie. Then we have The Fighter, starring Mark Wahlberg, Christian Bale in his Academy Award-winning performance for Best Supporting Actor, and Melissa Leo in her Academy Award-winning performance for Best Supporting Actress, directed by David Russell. Solid movie. A lot of comparisons between this movie and the original Rocky, but again, solid movie. Then we have The Tourist, starring Angelina Jolie and Johnny Depp, directed by, I thought Polanski directed this. No, directed by Florian Henel van Donnersmack. Whatever the hell that, I don't know. This movie's a piece of shit. We'll leave it at that. Then we have The Town, directed by Ben Affleck and starring Ben Affleck, Jon Hamm, Jeremy Renner, Rebecca Hall, and Blake Lively. This, again, solid crime thriller set in Boston. Highly recommended. And then we move to a crime thriller from Australia, Animal Kingdom, starring Ben Mendelsohn, Joel Edgerton, and Guy Pearce. Directed by David Michôd. I'm sorry. Again, I'm horrible with names. Solid movie. This was the movie that kind of introduced me to both Joel Edgerton and Ben Mendelsohn. They're both great actors. This is a really good movie. They actually turned this movie into a series on TNT, I believe, that ran for a couple of years, or maybe Yeah, I think it was TNT. I'm not sure. Ellen Barkin played the patriarch in that. But again, real good movie. And then we've got not one, but two sequels to complete the Millennium Trilogy. The Girl Who Played with Fire and The Girl Who Kicked the Hornet's Nest. These are based on the follow-up novels from The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, of course. And both of these are solid movies. I really like The Girl Who Played with Fire, especially. Girl with the Hornet's Nest is a little slow. But again, all three of these movies are great. They don't hold a candle to the original, but it's a great way to end the trilogy. Okay, now we're slowly starting to move into action, and we're going to start off with True Grit. Written and directed by the Coen brothers, starring Jeff Bridges, Josh Brolin, Matt Damon, and Haley Stanfield. Jeff Bridges was nominated for Best Actor for this film. He did not win for this. He's great. This is a remake, of course, of the classic starring John Wayne, and it's really good. This one, it follows the novel a lot closer than the John Wayne version did, so this movie is a lot different than that version. But again, great movie. I'm not comparing the two because I grew up with the John Wayne movie. Of course I love that movie, but I love this movie as well. Solid, solid, solid remake. Then we're going to switch over to some comic book / graphic novel movies. And the first one from the MCU, Iron Man 2. Starring Robert Downey Jr., Gwyneth Paltrow, Mickey Rourke, and introducing Scarlett Johansson as Black Widow. Also, Don Cheadle replaced Terrence Howard as Rhodes. I don't like this movie. I've never liked this movie. There's things about it I do like, but considering the heights that Iron Man 1 reached, this one doesn't ever take off, in my opinion. There's a couple of scenes in this movie I do like, but for the most part, this was an extreme disappointment for me. And then we've got Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, directed by Edgar Wright, and starring Michael Cera, Mary Elizabeth Winstead, and a bunch of other people. And I'm sorry, Nicole, I still have not watched this movie. I got to get around to watching this. So I've heard nothing but great things about it, but I still have not seen it. And if anybody's wondering, Nicole's my niece, and she's been busting my balls for years to watch this movie. And then the last graphic novel, or actually, no, I'm wrong. Next we have Kick-Ass, starring Aaron Johnson, Christopher Mintz-Plasse, Nicolas Cage, and, what's her name? I'm sorry, I'm horrible. Chloe Grace Moretz, that's right. I'm sorry. And she's great. She's the best thing about this movie. Her and Nicolas Cage are great in this movie. This movie's insane. Again, I never read the comic book or the graphic novel or whatever the source material is, but this movie is. It's a lot of fun. And the next one, I forgot. This was also based on a graphic novel. Excuse me, I had to rearrange something here. Red, starring Bruce Willis, Morgan Freeman, John Malkovich, Helen Mirren, a whole bunch of people in this movie. And this movie's insane. It's really entertaining. John Malkovich is just on a next level in this movie. He is crazy. It's almost like, I think his role was originally written for Crazy Gary Busey, and they decided to cast Malkovich instead. But oh my God, this movie is so much fun. Okay, now we're going into the action. And we have From Paris with Love, starring John Travolta and Jonathan Rhys-Meyers. I saw this movie when it first came out, obviously. I mean, I bought it. so I must have enjoyed it, but I honestly do not remember a thing about it. So that's something I got to watch again. Then we have Unstoppable, starring Denzel Washington, Chris Pine, and Rosario Dawson, directed by the late, great Tony Scott. This was Tony Scott's final film. He went out on a bang. This was a big hit. It was critically well received. I like it. I think it's a great movie. Unfortunately, he did commit suicide a year later. Rest in peace. He was a wonderful, wonderful director. And again, really good movie to go out on. This is a solid, solid action film. And then we got a couple of crazy ones for you. The first one, Machete, starring Danny Trejo, Jessica Alba, Michelle Rodriguez, Don Johnson, and Robert De Niro. Written and directed by Robert Rodriguez. This was inspired, of course, by the fake trailer from Grindhouse. And that trailer was such a huge hit and had such a response that for the next couple of years, every time Robert Rodriguez would be out and about, people would ask him, hey, when are you guys going to come out with a movie about Machete? Do Machete. So he did. And got a bunch of people to come in. I mean, Robert De Niro came in for this. And this movie is absolutely ridiculous. It is so much fun. I love this movie. The second one, the sequel, it's okay. But this one is fantastic. It knows exactly what it wants to be. And when this one came out, again, it wasn't a huge hit. But the people that saw it, unlike when Grindhouse came out, they understood what this movie was supposed to be. And it is so much fun. But this one was probably the most unexpected movie of the year for me. It's not an action movie, it's more of a horror comedy, but Tucker and Dale vs. Evil, starring Tyler Labine and Alan Tudyk, directed by Eli Craig. My God, this movie is so much fun. I'm going to cover this definitely on an underrated film to watch, to check out, because this movie is absolutely hysterically funny. I don't want to give away too much of the plot, but the more horror movies you've seen and other movies like Deliverance and stuff like that, hillbilly movies, you'll get more out of this. And this movie it is very, very clever, very smart. And these two have a bromance in this movie that is so touching. I absolutely love this movie to death. Okay, now we're going into horror. And we're back to Saw, with the 7th installment. Now on here it says Saw the Final Chapter. But in reality, when it was released at the theaters, it was Saw 3D. And it sucks. Then we have The Wolfman, starring Benicio del Toro, Anthony Hopkins, Emily Blunt, and Hugo Weaving. This is a solid reimagining of The Wolfman. They were trying to, jumpstart those Universal monsters. They had Mary Shelley's Frankenstein and Bram Stoker's Dracula in the 90s. Neither one of those really caught fire, although Dracula was kind of a hit. So they went back to the well and tried again with The Wolfman. And unfortunately, this movie had a lot of interference. Rick Baker was brought back to do the effects, and it was all going to be done practically a la American Werewolf in London. And at the last second, Universal got cold feet and basically changed everything to CG. And the movie suffers because of it. Again, this is a solid movie. I like it. But it could have been so much more. And then we have The Dead. This is a zombie film from Africa, South Africa, I believe. And again, I haven't seen it in a long time, but I remember at the time I really did enjoy it. It's something I got to revisit. The last horror-related property we have another documentary. And this is Never Sleep Again, The Elm Street Legacy. This is a 4.5 hour long documentary about all of the Elm Street films up until the remake. The remake is not covered in this, thank God, because the remake's a piece of shit. But this is a very comprehensive look at the Elm Street films. If you're a fan and you don't own this or you've never seen it, check into it. This is a great, great documentary. But we're going to end the year on sci-fi because this was a pretty good year for sci-fi. The first one, is Repo Man, starring Jude Law, Forrest Whitaker, and Liev Schreiber. Directed by Miguel Sapochnik, who I've never heard of. This is a futuristic movie where in the future you get your organs on payment plans when you need one. And if you don't pay, these guys show up to repossess it. And it's a pretty wild movie. It's not top tier, but the two of them play off each other extremely well. Then, from my Predator trilogy, the third installment, Predators, starring Adrian Brody, Lawrence Fishburne, Danny Trejo, Alice Braga, and Topher Grace. This is a lot of fun. This movie's a lot of fun. I just did the ranking of the Alien and Predator films. This one ended up in the top tier. It was like in number 6, I believe. And there's 13 films, so it's in the top half. Again, it's not as good as the original. It's much better than any Predator-related thing that came out after it. And again, this movie's fun. Then we have The Book of Eli, starring Denzel Washington, Mila Kunis, and Gary Oldman. Directed by the Hughes brothers. And again, this is like a post-apocalyptic Mad Max type movie, and it's awesome. Denzel gives a great performance as always, but Gary Oldman is fantastic in this movie. I really enjoyed this movie. I covered it on one of my underrated films to check out. I stand by that. Don't be surprised if this one doesn't show up on the top 10 for the year. Great movie. But we're going to end it on this one. Inception. With my lenticular cover. You like that? Starring Leonardo DiCaprio, Tom Hardy, Ken Watanabe. This movie's phenomenal. It's just simply phenomenal. I did a ranking of my Christopher Nolan films some time back. Inception came in number 2. This movie blew me away the first time I saw it. The visuals, the ideas behind it. I felt like I did after I saw The Matrix for the first time. My brain was just aching, but I wanted to go back and check it out again. This movie is just so much fun. Great performances across the board. The writing is great. The visuals are still amazing. This movie is, 15 years old now? Just about. And the visuals are still incredible in this. I can't say enough about Inception. It's definitely one of the best movies, if not the best movies of this year. And it's a great way to end this video. So that's it. That's the end of 2010. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, again, please give me a thumbs up, a possible subscribe, but most importantly, those comments. I'd really love to hear from you. We'll see you on the next one. We're going to break up the 50 Years in Film series this week. We're going to throw a couple of extra videos on there. So stay tuned. Have a great day, everyone.